This episode of Twice Removed is brought to you by 23andMe. As you might remember from science class, there are 23 pairs of chromosomes that make up your DNA. Well, that's where 23andMe, a genetic testing service, gets its name. 23andMe allows you to have access to information about your DNA. You can find out information about your ancestry, your health, even your physical traits. To learn more about your DNA, visit 23andme.com. That's the number 23andme.com. I don't know if you remember, but we met pretty early in your career. It was a show where you would set world records.
Yes.
And my world record, it was the longest single sustained note on hand cooing, which is when you cup your hands and...
I remember making that face when you did that before because that's so good. You're so good at it.
Thanks, Abby.
Right?
Who you are.
Biological family.
My dad's grandfather.
My ancestry.
My family.
Cousin, twice removed.
Twice removed.
Twice removed.
Twice removed.
Don't worry, at least we all are together. Don't worry.
This is Twice Removed, the show that proves we are, in fact, one big family. I'm AJ Jacobs. Right now, I have two people in this building in separate studios. And what they do not realize is they're related. They're family. One of them, our mystery relative, will be hidden away until the end of the episode. Our other is sitting right here with me, our guest, who is looking around to see... No, you're not going to see the mystery relative. Can you introduce yourself, please?
All right. I'm Abbi Jacobson. I'm a writer, actor, producer, illustrator.
A lot of slashes.
I love a good slash.
You are most well known as the co-creator and star of Broad City, the TV show on Comedy Central. And for listeners who might not be familiar with the show, how would you describe it? And shame on them for not being familiar with it.
Yeah, I can't believe I even have to do this. We're about to enter our fourth season, and the show is about two 20-something best friends living in New York City. It's me and Lana Glazer.
You were doing comedy long before the TV show. You had Broad City as a web series. There was improv. But I'm wondering, as a kid, what do you remember? What was one of the first jokes or pranks you ever pulled?
My mom's dad, we would do this thing that was so dumb. He would smash my face into the pie, right before we were about to eat it. I think we only did it a couple times because it ruined dessert. It ruined dessert for everybody. But I remember being we're really committing to this joke because everyone was about to enjoy this thing that now no one will eat. We ruined it, but go hard or go home, you know?
So that was your grandpa, your
Yeah.
mom's dad, Harry
Yeah.
Mayer.
Yeah.
And what was he like?
He was like a hustler. He was struggling. He was one of 11.
One of 11 kids?
Yeah, we do this thing in the first episode of last season where I put gum on the end of something and try and get Alana's keys in the sewer.
Remember.
You want the key back or not? Dude, just trust me. Chew. Come on.
Gum is so repulsive. It is cow cud.
Here we go.
And that was from my grandfather used to tell me how he put gum on the end of a stick and put it down the sewer and get coins that people had dropped.
Oh my God! Geni! You are a genius!
This is Depression era right here.
So he was a real hustler.
Yeah, he would deliver old, day-old newspapers, coming up with schemes because they were so poor.
All right, Abby, here's how Twice Removed works.
Okay.
We've spent the last several months doing research, talking to historians and distant relatives, finding people who are related to you.
So cool.
So, Abby, Here we have our official twice removed map. And on the far left side, that's you, Abbi Jacobson. And on the far right side, that's your mystery relative. And you can see their name is covered up because they're a mystery.
They're here.
They are. They're in the building in a secure location. So in between the two of you are 43 family members, all connected by blood or marriage. And we're going to make our way straight through this chain of relatives, one relative to the next, to the next, to the next, all the way to number 43, your mystery relative. And along the way, we're going to stop at 5 of the most interesting people and tell their stories. We'll investigate a 50-year-old cold case
Whoa.
that left your family reeling.
What?
We're going to hear about another record-breaking moment, slightly more notable than my hand coup, which is hard to believe.
Can't believe it.
As you listen, you're going to notice a theme running through these stories. Family members who are, I think it's safe to say, hustlers. We've got funny hustles, dark hustles, side hustles. Abbi, your family tree is full of hard workers who do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Cool.
And at the end of the show, after we've made our way to the end of this chain, we're going to bring your mystery relative into the studio for a family reunion like no other.
So cool. I love that hustler thing. I feel like I'm a hustler.
I think you are.
I'm feeling good. This is exciting.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm like, who is this?
Who do you want it to be? Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? Do you want it to be Dwayne?
Yeah.
Do you know him?
Well, now I know it's not. You're not going to actually, maybe you would say who it is to really throw me off.
That's right.
It's
a
probably
double
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He definitely has nothing else going on right now.
Well, he's family. He does it for you. Okay, Abbi, now I'm going to check in with our mystery relative. Hello, mystery relative. I can hear you, but Abbi cannot.
Ugh, I'm freaking out. I can't handle suspense. Abbi loves surprises. I think she's loving it right now.
So what will you do when you first meet?
I'll give her a kiss and a hug.
That sounds nice. All right, sir, we'll be back to you soon. Sit tight. Remember, these are your relatives too, so enjoy. And soon you will be meeting Abbi Jacobson face to face. Hopefully, the two of you will be filled with delight, or it could be abject horror. You never know. It's family. Let's do it. So, Abbi, for our first story, we're going 2 steps on the chain. So take a look at this map. First, we go to your mom, and then to your late grandfather, Harry. This is the Pie Prankster you told us about at the beginning of the show. Harry ran an Army-Navy store, and we got the idea he was a bit of an eccentric. He loved to surround himself with weird things. He'd hand out rabbit's feet to little kids, and at one point, he even had a mynah bird in the store that would swear at his customers. Did you know about that?
No, but that sounds exactly right.
It spoke in the voice of your grandmother, his wife, and it would say, f you to the customers.
No.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
No. Well, what happened was, he taught it to say, hello, Harry, or something. She got annoyed, so he brought it to the store, and the store employees taught it to say, f you.
That's so funny.
Now, like you said, he was a Depression-era kid. He didn't grow up with much. So once he finally did have money, he liked to buy lots of things, and really big things. It was actually a source of pride for him.
Yeah.
And there's no better example of this than his love for huge Halloween pumpkins.
Yes. We had one in my yard growing up.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
How big was it?
I remember one year it was huge. It was like a huge pumpkin that would be in front of like a mall. The night before Halloween is called Mischief Night. And I remember these kids smashed it.
Did they ever catch the pumpkin smashers?
No. But I remember he would do it every year. I think he would put it in front of the store too.
Well, that's very interesting because this brings us to an article from a small New Jersey newspaper written in 1967. And we have that article. And Abbi, could you read this section for me, please?
Halloween hobgoblins are evidently still on the prowl, despite the fact that trick-or-treating concluded 2 days ago. Ghouls with a sweet tooth for pumpkin pie last night stole a 160-pound pumpkin from the backyard of a home at Will Goose Avenue, Pennsauken. That's where my mom grew up.
Exactly. Your grandpa's house in New Jersey.
Yes.
So a 160-pound pumpkin. That's like the size of a beanbag chair, but heavy as a grown man. From what Harry could tell, somebody or some buddies would have needed to lift this massive pumpkin over the chain link fence in the backyard and then roll it through a field to make a getaway. The article says your grandfather was surprised that someone could even lift it. Apparently, this is the sad part, his 3-year-old daughter, Jackie, that's your aunt, just stared at the spot where the pumpkin had been and cried.
I mean, it's funny and sad.
Thought so. Well, Abbi, the whole thing did not sit right with us. I mean, there were so many questions. Who did it? Why? How? Okay, there were 3 questions. But still, each of these questions went unanswered for 49 years. So we felt we had to do something.
Hello, Pennsauken Police.
So we called the local police for help. Hello, my name is AJ Jacobs, and I'm recording a story about a theft from 50 years ago.
What? A story from 50 years ago? Nobody's going to have any information on that.
Well, it was important to the victim. The victim died, and we just want to investigate on behalf of him because he really would have wanted it solved. Like, it was his dying wish. I mean, it wasn't exactly, but it could have been.
Okay.
It was the theft of a pumpkin. It was like a prized pumpkin, 160 pounds.
What?
So is that something you see often?
No.
Have there been any pumpkin thefts in the last decade or so?
What did I know of?
So it sort of spiked in the 60s.
I have no idea, sir.
Now, if we are trying to solve this theft, what are some tips? What's the best thing we
I
can
don't
do?
know, sir. I have no idea, sir.
Is there DNA testing or to be done?
No, that didn't exist. All right, sir. I have to put you on hold.
Okay. Huh. I don't think he's coming back. He didn't come back. It was a dead end. We'd have to solve this on our own. So just a few days after Halloween, I recruited my producer, Meg, and we started thinking, what would the cops do right now? And Meg said,
get lunch?
Over lunch, Meg said, maybe we should ask one of the victims.
I woke up in the morning and I was going out the back door to go to school. I was in high school at the time. I saw the pumpkin wasn't there. Actually, I do remember jumping over the fence, looking and seeing if I saw any residue of the pumpkin or on the sidewalk. Nothing. My sister was upset because she enjoyed like climbing on it with her little friends. I think she was 3 or 4 years old. I was just amazed.
That's my Uncle Rick.
That is your Uncle Rick. Harry was his father.
Yes.
And Rick runs your grandfather's Army-Navy store now.
Yes.
So, Abbi, you know your grandfather better than I do. Was he the type of guy who would leave a 49-year-old, 160-pound score unsettled?
He probably still thought about it every time Halloween rolled around.
If not every day.
Yeah.
Your Uncle Rick felt the same way.
He was someone who liked closure of things. If something was an issue, he liked to get to the bottom of it.
Well, I think we've got to close this case for your dad.
Yep.
Yep. And Rick gave us our most important lead yet. What do you think? Who stole the pumpkin and how did they do it?
Years later, I was given the name of a guy who I knew. This young guy was a troublemaker in the neighborhood. And if somebody was going to steal the pumpkin, I could imagine that he would have been the one.
Have you run into this guy since then?
No, we don't really travel in the same circles. I don't even know where he is. But if I ever saw him...
What would you say to him?
Did you steal our pumpkin back in 1967? I would just ask him the question.
Flat out. Eventually, Rick gave up the name.
His name was Billy.
Billy.
Whoa, that's a hard last name to spell.
It's a hard last name to spell. So I turned to my producer, Meg, and said, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" And Meg said,
"Get lunch?"
Over lunch, Meg said, "Maybe we should try to find Billy." So we got in the car.
So AJ, we are just up the street from our alleged pumpkin thief's home. How are you feeling right now?
I'm actually quite nervous. I really am. I got a little pitter pat. I got some brow sweat. I want to do right by Harry and Rick. I want to give them some justice. And if we don't solve it, then who is? It's all on us. It's on our shoulders. It was go time. Okay, let's do it. So we walk towards the door. It is the creepiest house on the street. And all the shades are drawn. That's freaking me out. Totally dark. A skeleton swinging from a tree. Eesh. It's got a lot of pumpkins in the yard. All right, well and a pumpkin flag. Oh my God. I mean, this is too perfect. This is insane. He's got a pumpkin fetish. I mean, even if he doesn't confess, this is like enough evidence to bury him 1,000 times over. We were finally there. In the dark, no one around, only crickets. We were so nervous, we accidentally turned off the recorder for a minute. I knocked on the door. A man with gray hair answered. He was the right age to have stolen a pumpkin in 1967. I said, "We're looking for Billy." He said, "I'm Billy." We're doing one story on this thing that happened 50 years ago. And we were told that you actually might know something about it. Can I ask you?
Sure. I mean, what's the...
It was, believe it or not, there was a 160-pound pumpkin in a yard, and it disappeared. Does that ring a bell?
I don't know if I remember rolling a giant pumpkin down the... I can't place it.
So there is something in your mind about a giant pumpkin being rolled.
Yeah. I think I remember seeing something in the paper about it said Halloween goblin strike or something.
Oh yeah, that was it.
Is that it?
That's the one.
Oh my God!
So you remember that?
I remember seeing it in a paper.
Because that was the article that started this whole thing. We're like, that is so cool.
Wow.
Because it was him.
Exactly.
Billy.
I mean, come on. Let's take the facts, right? He remembers the lead of a newspaper article about a pumpkin theft from 50 years ago.
Yeah, but he also, the first thing he said was, "Do I remember rolling a big pumpkin down a hill?" He was like, "Can I still be like tried for this or whatever?"
Exactly. I don't know about the statute of limitations. We should have looked into that. So the more we learned about Billy, the more we were convinced we had our guy.
I got in trouble a lot. Staying out all night.
What were you doing out all night?
We waited for the A&P watermelon truck to come down Highland Avenue. And the guy always slept in the car. So we crawled up inside and we handed watermelons down to everybody. We took off.
No way. Stealing watermelons, or as many people call them, the pumpkin of fruits. I turned to my producer, Meg, and I said, "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" And Meg said,
"Get lunch?"
Over lunch, Meg said, "We totally caught our guy." And then she said, "We've got to make one last stop." We are outside Harry's Army and Navy store, New Jersey, and we're trying to get some closure on the story. All right, let's do it. We decided to leave a 160-pound pumpkin on the stoop of your grandfather's Army-Navy store, the store your Uncle Rick runs now. Actually, we couldn't find a 160-pound pumpkin, so we had to leave 4 40-pound pumpkins. And we left a note. Dear Rick, I know we can never get back that original 160-pound pumpkin, but we hope that these will fill that pumpkin-shaped hole in your heart. Signed, AJ, Meg, and the twice-removed team. P.S. We couldn't find one 160-pound pumpkin, so we're giving you 4 40-pounders. Hope you understand.
That's awesome.
How do you think your grandpa Harry would feel about this resolution?
I think he would feel great. Thank you for doing that. That's so nice.
Okay, we need to take a short break. When we come back, poop. Right after these words from our sponsors.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Squarespace, they'll help you make a website.
Hey, this is your host, AJ Jacobs, to tell you about our sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace makes it easy to build and publish a website, blog, or online store of your own. All you have to do is choose one of their award-winning templates, customize it to your liking, and publish. There's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. And if you do have any questions, Squarespace provides 24/7 customer support. That's right, you can communicate with their support team anytime. Really, anytime. 3 in the morning, 2:45 in the afternoon, 11:58 on New Year's Eve. You need your Squarespace customer support, they are there. To get started on your Squarespace website, visit squarespace.com and use promo code TWICEREMOVED for 10% off your purchase. That's squarespace.com, promo code TWICEREMOVED for 10% off. Squarespace. Make your next move. Welcome back to Twice Removed, the show that proves we are, in fact, one big family. Actually, this is interesting. We need to make a correction to the story that we just heard, because during the break, our mystery guest told us that we made a mistake. So, mystery guest, remember, Abbi cannot hear you. The rest of us can. Please tell us what we got wrong with the pumpkin theft story.
Oh, this is the fact check. You said that watermelon was a pumpkin of fruits, but pumpkins are fruits.
Oh.
Sorry.
Interesting. This mystery guest is smart.
Yeah, I'm a genius.
Okay, Abbi, we said that watermelons are the pumpkins of fruit. Our mystery guest tells us that pumpkins are fruits.
Because of the seeds.
Because of the seed. You knew that too?
Well, we're related.
All right, so Abbi, we're going to move past your grandfather, and I'm wondering, how much do you know about your deeper family, like your great-grandparents and their parents?
Nothing. That was the thing I was so interested in, because neither of my parents know much about our, farther family history.
Well, let's hop 2 stops on the map here to Harry's grandparents. This is your great-great-grandparents. Anna and Robert were their names. Now, Anna and Robert came to the U.S. from what is now Germany in 1867. They were Jewish, and Germany was a hostile place for Jews in that period, as in many periods. They probably couldn't even get full citizenship. So, they left. They got on a boat and eventually settled in Detroit, Michigan. Downtown, not far from where the Detroit Tigers baseball stadium is now. Abbi, did you know you had this Detroit connection?
No. Feels right.
Have you been to Detroit?
Yeah, I like it. I feel like there's definitely a hustle vibe there.
Totally. While a lot of immigration stories from this era are about hardship, It seems your relatives might have actually arrived at the right time and place. German immigrants were the largest group in Detroit in the 1860s, and the city was still small enough that they found jobs where they could work their way up. Your great-great-grandfather, Robert, for instance, he was a candy maker.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's cool.
He sold, we looked into it, at the time they did not sell chocolate, so he didn't, I know. But a few years later, a larger group of Eastern European Jews flooded into the city, fleeing violence in their home countries, the pogroms. And people across the country became even less tolerant of immigrants. So around that time, your family left Detroit, they lived in Texas for a stretch, and then in 1885, they came to New York City. They were the first of your family to have a home here.
Cool.
And the home where they moved is still standing. And we have a picture. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's actually just 4 miles from where we're sitting right now. And it's interesting because you have the German Jewish side, and then you've got the Russian, Lithuanian Jewish side. And the Germans, they were sort of the fancy early ones, and the Russians were like these struggling newer ones. So you're a mix.
So I am Jewish, is what you're saying.
We're still confirming that, but we think so. I put it at 90%. Your great-great-grandparents, Anna and Robert, they had 6 kids. And one of them, their daughter Pearl, is the subject of our next story. Pearl Priest is your second great aunt, 5 steps away from you, Abby.
Okay.
And in the early 1900s, she married a Providence, Rhode Island business tycoon. He ran multiple companies, a textile mill, a bottling plant, a sprinkler company. He had hundreds of employees. But in 1926, that business tycoon died. And Pearl, your second great aunt, she took over. There's an article about her in the Providence Evening Bulletin from 1933. As you can imagine, it is very dated. The headline is, Edgewood Woman Shows She Can Manage Business and Home.
Sadly, this feels like it could be a headline today. Still questioning whether women can do it all. No, but this is awesome. This is 1933.
Yeah, and Pearl actually fits into this long tradition of entrepreneurial women who have been overlooked. And we talked to a history professor about this.
I am absolutely convinced that every one of my students imagines women in the past sitting around with a dust cloth, and maybe taking care of the kids and sometimes cooking a meal. And that's it. And nothing could be further from what women were doing.
This is Susan Lewis. She's a history professor at the State University of New York, New Paltz.
Let me just start with Betsy Ross.
Betsy Ross. Okay, I've heard of her.
Yeah, Betsy Ross. What's your picture of Betsy Ross? Like sewing a flag, right?
Right, the fireplace.
Yeah. Betsy Ross ran an upholstery business.
Oh, I just think of her as someone who sews. That's all I know.
Right. She's just sitting there sewing. Yeah. No, she probably didn't sew it herself either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's a businesswoman. She's going to have somebody who's working for her sewed that flag. And she's one of the few women in American history who people recognize her name, but they recognize her for something that was not at all what she was doing.
I like Susan.
Then there's Bridget Kennedy, who emigrated from Ireland in 1849. This is Kennedy as in the Kennedys, JFK's great-grandmother.
The Kennedy family mythology really doesn't include this story of his great-grandmother. But she came to the United States and was widowed, and then starts like a little notions business in Boston.
Like buttons
and she works, things like that. Buttons, trimmings again, thread.
That little business brings in enough money to support the family. Enough money for her son to start his liquor business. A liquor business that turns into an empire that funds what would become a political dynasty.
So the Kennedy money begins with this small businesswoman.
Wow.
And Susan says these early female entrepreneurs often didn't consider themselves entrepreneurs. They were just doing what they had to support their families. And you see that in the article about Pearl, your great aunt. She runs that mill just about as long as her husband ran it, but she says she's just doing it for his legacy. After 11 years, Pearl finally sold the mill. Her foreman held a banquet in her honor. They presented her with a plaque praising her courage and generosity in guiding the destiny of the plant. There are 35 signatures at the bottom, all of them men.
That's awesome. I bet that happened a lot, and that's such a bummer in a way, but also exciting to know that this has been going on, and now it's like, yeah, duh. Women do run the world. Beyonce.
Had you heard about your Aunt Pearl?
No, again, I had not heard. I have no idea about anyone past my grandparents.
One other thing worth noting is that Pearl was very good with money. Right before the stock market crash in 1929, she sold all of her holdings and made a small fortune.
Whoa.
Yeah, she basically kept the family afloat with that money.
Wow, Pearl.
Pearl indeed.
Yeah.
All right, Abby, I think you're going to love this. For our third story today, we're going only 3 steps away from Pearl, 7 steps from you. Pearl had a daughter who married our next relative. We're in the 1960s now. His name is Herbert Rosenfield, and Herbert played a small role in a massive fight over the very future of New York City. He passed away a few months ago, but we talked to his daughter, Pat.
First of all, the thing to know about my father is that he was a New Yorker through and through and loved New York City. And whenever he traveled, he would compare everything to New York City. Whether he was in Japan, he'd want good New York food.
I do that too.
Yeah, you go.
I'm always
travel?
like, this is like New York, or this is nothing like New York.
It's one or the other.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
And Herbert was truly an unsung hero of New York City. He was a real hustler. When he saw a problem, he'd dig into arcane city ordinances to find a solution. And he fought for one movement that was bigger and tougher and more controversial than all the others. It was a movement that got a whole paragraph in his obituary. It reads, "Feeling that there was a serious problem in the neighborhood of people not cleaning up after their dogs, Rosenfield organized the first community park cleanup event. Rosenfield was active in pushing for what would become the Pooper Scooper Law." Abby, have you heard of the Pooper Scooper Law?
No, but I'm guessing it's you have to pick up after your dog?
That's exactly right. Pick up the poop under penalty of death. Well, no, but a small fine.
It's like, whoa.
I actually remember this because I was a kid growing up in New York, and there was poop all over the sidewalk. It was so gross, and it was a big problem. Here's Pat talking about it.
You couldn't walk in New York without looking down all the time. You had to really walk very carefully, gingerly around. It was also disgusting. It's like being in a field of cow dung.
There are very few things that get people's attention and get them riled up as much as this issue of canine waste.
This is Michael Brandow. He's the author of the book New York's Poop Scoop Law, Dogs, Dirt, and Due Process.
Some New Yorkers were saying it mattered more to them than the Vietnam War.
Whoa.
You have to remember, people focus on what they confront daily, the quality of their lives,
And poop was right there on the sidewalk.
It was
and
right there.
Vietnam was 10,000 miles away.
Absolutely.
The book begins in the late 1960s when several trends were converging to make dog poop a big problem. For one, New York City was in crisis. Businesses were fleeing. The city had no money. Crime was rampant. The population was growing, and these people moving into the city, they were bringing their dogs with them. The number of dogs in the city doubled.
Because of the urban crisis, people were getting dogs, bigger dogs all the time, guard dogs for protection because police weren't able to do that. So they left bigger messes, right? Great Danes and Dobermans and German Shepherds and Rottweilers.
Those are big poops.
Yeah, and some senators actually blamed dogs for the urban crisis. So they took this one issue of poop and said this is the reason for New York's downfall.
Because New York was broke, there was no money for things like street sweepers. And city officials started throwing out some really strange ideas. One politician suggested enviromaids. This would be a group of women who would be paid to walk the streets and inspect them for cleanliness. He said it was a perfect plan because women were tidier than men and could be paid a lot less money.
Wow, that sounds cool.
The ideas got even stranger.
Experimental dog toilets around the city.
Dog toilet? What does a dog toilet look like?
It's basically a hole in the pavement. It's a Turkish toilet. And they had a big event with lots of publicity and celebrities showing up.
I would love to know which celebrities were the dog toilet spokespeople.
Oh, gosh. Well, there was a dog toilet installed on West 43rd Street where Toto from The Wiz on Broadway showed up and put his paws in the concrete to baptize this new doggy toilet. But he sniffed at the thing and just walked away. He wasn't interested. And I'm sure they filled it in shortly thereafter.
And the strangest idea of all?
The idea of making people actually bend over and handle feces and pick it up and bring it home. That was so bizarre. It was so unheard of. No one had ever done that before. It was a very weird idea, and most people laughed at it.
And that's why it was such a big deal when the city council proposed a new law that would require all dog owners to pick up after their dog or risk a fine. The poop scoop law. The one your relative was involved in. This proposal ignited a fight that split the city in two. Brother against dog-owning brother. On one side of the fight, dog owners, who were not happy about having to pick up after their pets. I mean, you have a crazy quote in your book. Like the Jews of Nazi Germany, we citizens, including the old and infirm, are being humiliated by being forced to pick up excrement from the gutter.
Mm-hmm. That had a lot of support.
To me, that is the worst metaphor.
It's horrible.
There's a way to make the point without bringing in these terrible metaphors, right?
It seems that way.
It seems that way.
Yeah, I think Nazi metaphors should be used very sparingly.
Right? What's going on?
Yeah, to the dog owners, this was a sign of things to come.
This is a carefully planned step toward banning dogs from New York City. Even the idea, you can imagine the terror, the idea they're going to take our dogs away.
It's sort of, yeah, first they come for the poop, then they come for the dog.
Exactly. So it got polarized.
I mean, it sounds like the Second Amendment. First
Exactly.
They try to regulate, and then they're going to take our guns away.
Exactly.
On the other side of this fight were people annoyed with the dog poop. People labeled anti-dog, like your relative, the unsung hero, Herbert Rosenfield. So at first, he tried confronting his neighbors. Here's his daughter, Pat.
He would say, pick that up. There is a garbage can. We made sure there were garbage cans here. You throw it right there. It's very easy.
And what was that like for you when he would confront people on the street?
Mortifying. Mortifying. Absolutely mortifying. I just thought, oh, Daddy, come on. We can pick it up and throw it away.
When that didn't work, he got others on board. He organized a group called Come and Clean to scrub the sidewalks near Gramercy Park and pick up litter. And Herbert's group, it started a trend. Anti-dog groups started popping up everywhere. They said the dog poop was putting New York's children in danger. Their most vocal advocate was a TV star named Fran Lee, who went on an anti-poop publicity tour.
She's a delightful woman, I understand. A pleasure to welcome her to our show. Consumer advocate and television personality, Fran Lee. Fran?
This is Fran on national television, The Merv Griffin Show.
No, I love dogs. I hate the owners. I really love animals. Everybody out there knows I do, but I've hated what the dog owners allowed to happen to my beautiful city.
She went on talk shows.
Miss Lee, we understand you're upset over the fact that New York sidewalks have become scatological minefields.
The people that, for, I don't know, some reason seems to think the ambrosia that runs from their dog's backside is so precious they want to bottle it.
Call-in shows.
But you people have got to be prepared to do what I do. I take my camera and I take a picture of the dogs defecating either in the hallway, on the rugs, out in front of your window. Now be prepared to get a punch in the nose. I have taken a cardboard with a poop on it, chased a woman in front of my house, and put it on her hat.
So things reach a fever pitch at a city council hearing in 1972. One former councilwoman said it was a wild hearing, raucous, difficult to keep order. Dog owners were arriving hysterical. Fran Lee was there talking about rare diseases, and they just gave up because they couldn't get anything done. The proposal died. 6 years pass. The World Trade Center opens. Wheel of Fortune premieres on TV. Clapton goes solo. And then the poop scoop law gets passed, almost in secret, by the state, putting an end to a decade of mudslinging. And New York City was never the same.
In a way, it was a really important first step for urban renewal. If people didn't want to live here and corporations didn't want to come back again because it was so disgusting, you had to clean the sidewalks.
So it really was a first step in New York's comeback.
It really was. I don't think there's anything that made dogs more socially acceptable in cities than this custom. I mean,
so it saved the dogs.
It did.
It saved New York and it saved the dogs.
Wow, yeah, I guess you don't think about that, but it's very important.
Very important. I mean, we live in a New York City that is so different from the one that your ancestors lived in 140 years ago. And one of the big things is it's so much cleaner.
Yeah.
Because of your relative.
Wow.
So, Abbi, I'm wondering, at this point, how do you feel about these different family members? Are they the kind of family you'd want?
I do like that they seem very, like, committed to who they are. They're, like, all characters.
As you say, you gotta go big or go home.
Yep. Pearl feels like that's like the coolest discovery to me. Just in terms of, like, strong women in my family. And I knew my grandfather was, like, a very strong person. She's not that far removed from him, so that feels like, oh, I feel like there's, like, a lineage of that.
So that idea of strong women, settle in.
Are you going to crush it right now?
Nope. Another strong woman.
Okay.
So this is it. We've made it. This is our last story before your mystery relative. For our last story, we're moving pretty far down the chain, 33 people away from you, Abbi, to meet your next relative. Her name is Ella Mae Riley. She was born in 1920 and grew up very poor during the peak of the Great Depression. Her father was white and her mother was Native American.
Wow.
She lived in a very small Oklahoma town called Ketchum at the fringes of the Dust Bowl. She didn't have much, but she was good at basketball.
She would take cloth and start with a little ball and make the ball bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger till it got to be the size of a basketball.
That's Ella Mae's daughter, Sally. So a ball of rags?
A ball of rags. They made a hoop.
What was the hoop made of?
Probably grapevine.
Huh.
Back then, grapevine was, you'd cut it off and that's what you smoked and got in trouble with. But I guess she decided to wind it around and make a hoop out of it.
That's how she learned to play basketball?
That's how she learned to play basketball. And she told me the minute that ball went out of my hands, I knew it was going to go in that hoop. She never missed a shot.
In fact, when we were looking into Ella Mae, we came across this. It is a Ripley's Believe It or Not illustration featuring your relative, Ella Mae Riley. She scored 38 points during a high school basketball game.
Wow.
And no one else scored at all. Those points were the whole game. Amazing, right? Back then, Ripley's wasn't just an oddities museum in Times Square. It was a syndicated feature in newspapers all across the country, and it was massive. This drawing of your relative Ella Mae, it would have been seen by 60 million people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Even more than Broad City.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit more.
That kind of exposure would change anyone's life, especially a high school girl from rural Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But it only took one person, the right person, to see it. And that person was a woman named Helen Stevens.
Helen Stevens came to Ketchum and said, I want you to be on my basketball team, and we're going to tour the United States.
Should I be writing this movie now? Is this a movie?
I think it is. I mean, wait till you hear it.
Am I playing Ella Mae?
I think so. She's your relative.
Guys. Okay,
Done.
keep going.
All right. In the late 1930s, Helen Stevens was one of the most famous women athletes in the world, like Serena Williams. And someone like that showing up in Ketchum, it was a big deal. So even though this story is about your relative Ella Mae, I do want to pause for just a minute to talk about Helen, because Ella Mae possibly wouldn't even be Ella Mae without Helen. And if we're talking about hustlers, Helen was one of the best. She made her name in the 1936 Berlin Olympics, the ones where Jesse Owens showed up the Nazis by breaking 3 world records and winning 4 gold medals in track and field.
And she ran about a second shy of Jesse Owens' speed.
Whoa.
That's Sharon Kinney Hansen. She wrote a book about Helen, the mentor of your relative. Helen was such an incredible athlete that it was easier for Olympic officials to believe that she was a man than that a woman could be so powerful. And so they did something unprecedented. They forced Helen to undergo an invasive exam to prove that she was a woman. Helen didn't flinch. She did the test, competed, and broke 2 world records. But the accusations, they didn't stop. And when an American magazine questioned her gender again, she sued the magazine, won, and used the money to start her own basketball team.
Wow. That's amazing. This is definitely a movie. Wait, that's insane.
Oh, yeah.
And also, I guess, totally believable in the world that we live in, where they insisted she needed to be a man to be successful at something.
I know, that is nuts,
What
right?
the Sorry, you can bleep all my curses.
We enjoy your curses. So that's the woman who went to Oklahoma and asked your relative, Ella Mae Riley, to come travel across the country playing basketball with her.
And Mother said, let's go. Hop on the bus, Gus.
In the late 1930s, Ella Mae's team was part of a sports phenomenon called barnstorming. It's where baseball or basketball teams would travel all across the country as kind of small-town performances. So, did you see League of Their Own?
Yeah.
So this...
I've seen it a lot. We are the members of the All-American. I love that movie.
Wow.
That's what it felt like when she said, get on the bus, Gus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is the basketball version. But this is crazy. In baseball, women's teams played other women's teams. Ella Mae's team of barnstorming basketballers only played men.
Whoa.
So better than a league of their own.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They were called the Olympic Co-Eds, and they even had their own fight song.
We are the Olympic Co-Eds, Co-Eds. We never, never see a bed. We never know where we'll be next.
Their uniforms were red, white, and blue silk, with the Olympic rings embroidered on the sleeves.
Just so we can give a show. So if you like to see us play, we'll be back another day. Not so hot.
Very hot. I loved it. So each member of the team had a shtick.
A sure shot putter from Chicago, an aviatrix, a ski star, a female wrestler, a baseball star, and a Native American, Little Chief Riley.
Little Chief Riley. That's what they called Ella Mae Riley. She was billed as, quote, a little Cherokee Indian girl from Oklahoma. She was the smallest on the squad, but the fastest and the highest scorer. And as one article described her, a breath of beauty from Oklahoma who drew plenty of cheers from the gentlemen who had left their wives at home. I like your face. You look skeptical.
It's like, what? Okay.
The Co-Eds traveled all across the country, driving something like 42,000 miles in 5 months. All 6 women, plus a bodyguard named Hambone, crisscrossed the U.S. And there's a photo.
Aw. I do love how they're all dressed. Like, some of the women are wearing ties. Yeah, they're wearing, like, suits almost. It's cool.
So these games were hugely popular, drawing crowds as big as 5,000 people. That's 10 times the population of the town Ella Mae grew up in. And those huge crowds, they could get drunk and rowdy.
There would be some heckling from the audience. Some appreciated the fact that they were playing the game, and some of the guys thought that women were out of line by even trying.
But these women, they didn't flinch. Once, one of the co-eds punched the referee in the face.
That's awesome.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's great, but...
Yeah, it's great. I would like to think that they deserved it.
There you go. Probably. Ella Mae spent 5 months traveling with the co-eds. She returned to Ketchum right around her 20th birthday. So right now, Abbi, you know more about this chapter of your distant cousin's life than anyone else who knew her. Friends, neighbors, family, even her daughter, Sally.
Let me tell you, my mother didn't talk. I didn't even know any of this until later on in life. She never talked about it. What she would say is, I don't want my laundry on the streets.
Ella Mae only talked about it once. Back in 1997, a reporter in Oklahoma happened to find her Ripley's article, like we did. She said her season with the co-eds was the experience of a lifetime. Now, sometimes a big break is a change or a turning point. But sometimes it's just that, a break in the monotony, a respite from hardship. And that's kind of what Ella Mae's season with the co-eds was, because the later part of her life wasn't easy.
She was an extrovert in the public, but she was really an introvert. She really had low self-esteem.
Why do you think that is? I mean, she seems amazing.
She had some tragedy in her life. She had several marriages that didn't work, and she'd roll over in her grave if I told you how many, so I'm going to leave that out. It was more than Elizabeth Taylor, let me tell you that. And they weren't good marriages. She had a poor picker when it came to men. Her 3 children, they all passed away before her.
3 of the 4 siblings passed away before her? Oh, that's heartbreaking.
Yes. My sister lived to be 39, and my brother was 38. Her last child died as an infant. She was never the same after that.
As the only surviving child, Sally is kind of the keeper of Ella Mae's memory. And even though she can't forget the painful parts of her mom's life, she focuses instead on the good. She thinks about her mom's fearlessness, her readiness to always take a chance or throw a punch, and the courage it took for her to leave Ketchum and follow a dream. So you choose the moments you want to remember people by. And that's exactly what Sally's done. I love this part. Sally designed Ella Mae's tombstone, and sandblasted on the back of it is the drawing of Ella Mae in the Ripley's feature. Etched in stone, she's forever poised, ready to shoot.
That's awesome. That's a great drawing.
Isn't it a great?
Yeah.
As an illustrator, exactly.
Yeah, that's really cool.
One thing that caught my attention was that there were people who had trouble believing women were even capable of doing these things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not totally surprised at that theme running through history. Before any career, it's like, you're a female blank. What's it like being a female writer? What's it like being a female actor? Where it's never, you're a male writer. I mean, I think it's changing. Hopefully, it's obviously getting better than it was for all of these women that came before us.
You know what you got to do is take the inspiration from the co-eds and just punch them in the face. All right. After the break, we reveal Abbi's mystery relative who is sitting in the other room.
This guy is funny, man. His voice. Is he a little freaking nerd? Is he a cutie little nerd? I can't wait to see him.
After these words from our sponsors.
23andMe. Spit into a tube and see.
This episode of Twice Removed is brought to you by 23andMe. Did you know that genetically, we're all 99.5% the same? Wouldn't you like to know more about what's in that 0.5%? With 23andMe, you can. 23andMe gets its name from the 23 pairs of chromosomes that make up your DNA. And those chromosome pairs contain a lot of information, like where in the world you came from. You can even see how DNA affects your likelihood to consume more caffeine or be a deep sleeper. So, how does 23andMe work? You simply purchase a kit on their website, 23andme.com. When the test arrives, you provide a saliva sample by spitting into a tube. The best part, once your DNA has been analyzed, you'll get to learn more about what makes you, you. To order your kit today, visit 23andme.com. That's the number 23, ANDME.com.
23andMe.
Welcome back to Twice Removed. Okay, Abbi, we have made it. 57 steps later, we've met entrepreneurs, pumpkin thieves, professional athletes. We are now ready to meet your mystery cousin. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait. The suspense is killing me here.
All right. Mystery relative, you can come on in. Oh my goodness.
Hey.
I knew you knew.
I did know who that
You
was
did?
going to be, yeah.
How did you know?
I was like, who else would come in this early from me? And then the fruit thing, I was like, Alana's going to be the person.
Oh, you recognize you know that she's like a botanical genius.
Was like, I bet they're going to find a connection between us. Yeah.
For those listening, Abbi's mystery relative is her partner in crime, co-creator of Broad City, Alana Glazer. So, hearing about your common ancestors, were there any of those that reminded you of Abbi?
Yeah, I loved hearing more about Harry.
Well, you're closer to Ella Mae than I am.
Yeah, that's so weird, right? I was like, we have like Native American. It really did highlight for me your main theme, which is like we're all family. Incredible.
Yeah.
But also literally all family is like, it's so congratulations on the project because it's truly mind-blowing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the things I relate to, especially in the women and my grandfather, are like the hustle aspects. I think are the same things for Alana, like how the show was born.
Now, we do have one more surprise for you guys. We found another common relative between you two that we haven't shared yet. And this person is 50 steps away from you, Alana, through blood and marriage, and a few more away from you, Abbi, 53 to be exact. And it's someone that I think you're going to be pretty excited to have as part of your extended family. And she sent you guys a message.
Hi, Abbi. Hi, Alana. This is your cousin, Molly Shannon. How are you guys? I just want to say you're two of the funniest, hardest working women around, and I'm so happy that I'm related to you.
I love her. That's so cute.
Abbi, this is so weird, but I heard a rumor that you dressed up as Mary Catherine Gallagher when you were little. Is that true?
I was just going to say that.
Yes, Molly Shannon.
So funny. I dressed up as Abbi Jacobson when I was little, too. So what a coincidence. But seriously, I just want to say I love Broad City. I think you two are so talented. I love you. I can't wait for our next family reunion. Bye.
She is so cute.
She really is so cute.
Tell me about as a kid. You dressed up as
Mary Catherine Gallagher for 8th grade. My 8th grade Halloween.
And so Mary Catherine Gallagher, of course, is the spastic Catholic high school student that Molly Shannon played on Saturday Night Live.
I was really into SNL growing up. That was like my thing. I impersonated her all the time. Yeah, I wore like the Catholic outfit. She was just so wild. She would always like break a whole like set of bathroom stalls or something. She was so committed to the character.
Okay, for the record, here's how you guys are related. Alana, you are Abbi's grandfather's sisters, sons, wives, grandfather's brothers, daughters, husbands, nephews, grandfather's sisters, great-grandsons, wives, grandmother's sisters, daughters, husbands, brothers, wives, uncles, sons, wives, sisters, sons, wives, grandfather's brothers, sons, daughter.
Damn.
Wow, our moms are going to be so happy.
Yeah, they're going to love this podcast.
Yeah.
So now that you know your family, does it change?
I don't know if we can do the show anymore.
Yeah. We certainly can't keep having sex.
Yeah. Now
it's weird.
Now it's
not
weird.
being the business, not just running a business together and having sex, but now that we know we're family, it's weird.
Yeah, it's whew.
Twice Removed is produced by Meg Driscoll, Ngofeen Mputubwele, Audrey Quinn, and Kimmie Regler. Our senior producer is Eric Mennel. Editing by Jorge Just and Alex Blumberg. Michelle Harris is our fact-checker. Research help from the New York Genealogical and Biographical Society and Robert Rockaway. Genealogical help from Jordan Auslander, J. Mark Lowe, David Zuckerman, Erica Howton, and the people at Geni. Music and sound design by Haley Shaw. Special thanks to John Molina, Sandra Mann, Jane Trepagnier, Tim Martin, Andrew Hudson, Bria Schreiber, Melissa Cates, and our Olympic Co-Eds singers, Molly Messick, Simone Polanen, and Stevie Lane. Ilana Glazer, our mystery relative, is also the executive producer of the podcast So Many White Guys from WNYC. It's hosted by the brilliant and hilarious Phoebe Robinson. So Many White Guys is back with their second season in a couple of weeks, so be sure to check that out. If you're a fan of the show, we would love it if you could rate or review us on iTunes. It makes a big, big difference, and it really is one of the best ways to help others find out about the show. So hop onto iTunes or your podcast app and let us know what you think. After all, we're family. Twice Removed is a production of Gimlet Media. I'm AJ Jacobs. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Thanks to our sponsor, Squarespace. To get started on your online store, blog, or website today, visit squarespace.com and use promo code TWICEREMOVED for 10% off your purchase. That's squarespace.com, promo code TWICEREMOVED for 10% off. Squarespace. Make your next move. Special thanks this week to Family Tree Magazine. With Family Tree Magazine, you can unlock exciting discoveries about your own family tree. How? The editors of Family Tree Magazine can walk you through 48 secrets to searching for your roots online. Get started now and download their free ebook at familytreemagazine.com/ancestry. That's familytreemagazine.com/ancestry.